like it or not, money is core to this hobby of watches. From the cheapest to the most expensive, you can't avoid the idea of money and price. And given that, I am always stunned at how unsophisticated our discussion of price tends to be. Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and today I want to just raise some questions, some concerns I have about the way we talk about price. What I find is I get a lot of emails from people and a lot of DMs from people indicating to me that certain brands are rubbish because they've got terrible resale value, certain brands are poor value, certain brands are great value, certain brands are fantastic. And they'll often send me ads and so forth, which on further reflection don't say what these people think what they think they were saying. They don't necessarily show very well whether something is good value or even has good resale value, because they have a very unsophisticated, the people sending them in to me have had a very unsophisticated view of what price is. So really what I want to do is talk about some of those issues about how I think we need to get cleverer in how we think about price, resale value, all that sort of thing. The first thing is I think we should throw away the idea of MSRP. We should stop using MSRP as a basis for figuring out whether something is good or bad value, has a good resale value or not. And the first reason is because no one pays it. There are, my guesstimate, ballpark, there are 10,000 different SKUs of watches for sale right now around the world. There are probably 25 that actually sell above MSRP in one shape or form. And there's probably everything else, 9,000 and what's it work out to be, 75, that sell to some extent below MSRP. So given that no one pays MSRP, everyone expects either a discount or probably have to pay a little bit over the odds in some way, then why do we use MSRP as a valid basis? If you know for a fact that you are going to just walk into an AD and say, get 10% off an MSRP without even trying, surely when we're doing our calculations of how much a watch costs, it should be 90% of MSRP, 80% of MSRP. To do anything else seems a bit, well, just pointless because you're wrong. Now, even though MSRP is inaccurate as a pricing basis, maybe it can be redeemed by being precise. So it might not be accurate. I'm being very horological here, the difference between accuracy and precision. It might not be accurate, but at least it might be precise in that everyone around the world can use it as a solid benchmark. The only problem is it fails there too, because most watches have multiple MSRP. So now you've got to choose which MSRP you're going to select. So I'll use an example I'm familiar with. I'm something of a Breitling guy, so I follow prices of Breitling products. And let's start with a core Breitling product. You do not get more core Breitling than the standard 43mm B01 Navitimer on leather. That is kind of like the archetypal, most commonly sold Breitling watch. It's on pretty much every catalog, every distributor around the world. And that watch is going to cost you, has an MSRP of $8,350 US in the US. You don't pay that anywhere else. If you buy that in Australia, I'll do the conversion. MSRP for that watch in Australia is $7,950 US. So it's like, what's that, $400-ish cheaper. So that's your 5% discount from another AD paying MSRP. But there's a kicker, because you see that price, the MSRP in America, that's ex tax, without tax. The price in Australia is with a 10% GST. So you make those prices comparable. Remember, US price 83.50, Australian price now without GST 71.50. So it's now, what's that, $1,200 cheaper. It's almost 15% cheaper in Australia. MSRP. Now, if you're going to calculate your resale value, the amount you lose, it is key for you to figure out which MSRP you're going to use. Do you use the highest one or do you use the lowest one? But before we go, that Australian price, that's not even the lowest MSRP. Because you see, if you buy that same watch in the UK, it's actually $7,928 US, which is very close to the Australian price, a little bit cheaper, except that's with a 20% VAT on it. Remove the VAT and that price is now $6,900 US, fully nearly $1,500 cheaper, nearly 20% cheaper in the UK. So again, when you start saying that these watches lose 20% as soon as you walk out the AD, there's a watch that loses 20% before you've even bought it if you buy it in America. So again, if you're going to calculate which watches sell high and which watches sell low, I think it's important to figure out which MSRP you're going to use. I would suggest you should use the lowest one you have to pay, because that's the price you're going to use for the resale. The resale price is always going to be the lowest you can find anywhere. So really, to be fair, to be accurate, you should be picking the lowest possible MSRP in the world if you're going to start talking about MSRP as your basis of comparison. Now, that's for the buying side. You have the same problem on the selling side, because one of the things I routinely find is when people start talking about what prices you can get when you sell a watch, they suddenly become very blasé about, is this a new old stock, new with stickers, new with tags, box and papers, or is it a beat up old crappy version that someone found in their sock drawer? What I tend to find is when people are doing their, like whether a watch has good resale or bad resale, they tend to compare beaten up at bottom of sock drawer version with what I paid for something walking out the door in the most expensive MSRP in the world. I think the first thing you need to do is, if you're thinking about resale value, be very clear and sale price. You've got to be very clear on matching condition for condition and making sure that if you are comparing watches, you're always comparing the same watch in the same condition from the same buyer. And I haven't got from the same seller, and I haven't got to that bit yet. Because the other thing you'll find is people become very loosey-goosey around who the seller is. And in particular, there's two issues there, geography and the kind of seller. I often find people send me very cheap prices saying, see, look, I could buy this watch here at some ridiculously low price. And I'll tell you which country it comes from, or where it comes from. It'll universally be from Russia, it'll often be from Russia, it'll be from South America, or it'll be from India, sometimes Mexico. Those really, really low prices that a lot of people use for their, like what you'll get on a resale, routinely come from places which frankly most of us won't actually buy from. So again, I think if you're going to consider what is the price going to be if I was to sell it, or what is the lowest price I could conceivably buy it on the secondary market, you really do have to zone in on what countries are viable for me. There's no point looking at a sale price from India, Russia, or South America if you have no intention of, if you're not them, if you're not in those countries, you won't suffer the risk penalty they do in selling. Likewise, a lot of people use don't seem to pay attention to whether the prices are coming predominantly from dealers or from private individuals. There are certain watches, Rolex is a great example. Go to Rolex, go look at Chrono 24, go look at who's selling it, and the vast bulk of people selling those watches are in fact dealers who are involved in the secondary trade and are flipping them very, very high. Those are not realistic prices for you if you're a private individual. You are not going to get that when you sell it. So again, if you're thinking about resale value, you really should be saying, I need to, and trying to figure out whether what I might get selling a watch, you've got to be very careful about thinking, what would I get selling a watch in the condition I've got it, from the country I'm in, as a private citizen? And what you might find is your idea of the sale price could vary drastically from what you see in a lot of vlogs and what YouTubers like me tend to talk about. And so really the thing I would point out is that I'm not a dealer. I'm not a flipper. I do this. I look at these pricing situations largely as a game, as an intellectual exercise, as part of kind of running a YouTube channel, and because it's sort of fun in this hobby. And yet, despite the fact I don't really have any skin in this game, even I can see that the kind of headline resale value, what watches are good, what watches are bad kind of discussions that we have are actually pretty clueless. What I suggest for you is, if you are a flipper, if you are thinking about, particularly if you're kind of new to it, that is, don't listen to anyone on YouTube about what brands are good and what brands are bad. Don't listen to any vloggers. Do your research really carefully in a very forensic manner and think very much about what's the lowest I can buy this watch from anywhere in the world within my risk margin. That is my price. Throw MSRP out. If you're thinking about selling a watch, think about, what price am I likely to get if I sell this watch in the condition that I have it as a private citizen in the country I'm in? And then I think what you will find, what I have found, is that what watch we're talking about, what brand we're talking about, becomes increasingly less important. That the differences between brands tend to even out a lot. There are still some brands that are better than others. There are still some watches that are better than others, but the differences are not as stark as you might think. The real key is to buy well and sell well. And regardless of the watch, if you can buy well and sell well, you'll be okay. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches, and I'll see you later. Bye.